Hello, this is a recap of American movie called The Last Man on Earth. Please don't forget to subscribe. Let's begin. After a mysterious named virus take out every human being, Philip Miller is the last man on Earth. He has been living alone for the past year and is driving around America to look for more people. He goes to every single state making announcements to empty cities and stealing artifacts and painting from museums. After the failed mission to find humans, Philip decided to return to his hometown, Tucson. Still, as the last attempt to find someone, he writes "Alive in Tucson" on every billboard he can find. In Tucson, he goes to his shabby apartment and packs up all the necessary stuff before making his way to a gated community in the more lavish part of the city. He chooses the biggest house and declares it his new home. He spends the next few days decorating the house with all the famous paintings, a mat from the White House, a dinosaur skull, Academy Awards, and many more artifacts worth billions of dollars. Every day before going to sleep, Phillips makes sure to apologize to God for masturbating too much and wishes that he sees the face of at least one woman before his death. Thankfully, there are still a plethora of cars that he can use to drive around. He goes to the grocery store in his underwear and breaks in using a gun. In only a year, he has completely forgotten basic decency now that he has no one to impress. He also does everything that was just impulsive so before the virus, like destroying the pile of cans in the store and bringing hundreds of adults' film home. To pass time, he played racquetball with himself, uses lamps and aquariums as bowling pins, and crashes cars into each other. The chaos makes him feel a hint of adrenaline and helps him cope with the loneliness. After about a month, he starts to lose his sense of sanity. Moreover, being alone in his birthday reminds him of everything he failed to appreciate when life was normal. He misses his mother, his life, and humans in general. The scene cuts to a few months later. The grand mansion Phillips lived in has turned into a dumping site. It is filled with plastic and cans that he never cleans up because there won't be a meaning to it anyway. He hasn't showered in days and has started living like an animal. The house lacks running water and the toilet is covered in plastic bottles. So instead, Philip makes a hole in the spank board and uses the pool as his toilet. He also fills the kids' pool with margaritas and passes on it, while at the same time drinking from it. Then, one day, he goes to the bar and draws faces on balls, assigning them a name and a personality. He talks to them like they are his real friends, just to feel like he isn't lonely. At night, he brings a ball named Grey to a clothing store and hits on a mannequin that he has a crush on. When her arm breaks, Philip loses his mind. He decides that he doesn't want to live anymore and goes to the nearby hill to commit the unthinkable. He wishes farewell to all his ball friends, promising to remember them for eternity. Then he gets inside his car and drives towards the hill at full speed. Suddenly he sees the smoke rising far away and stops the car a second before it crashes. Philip can almost not believe his eyes. He immediately follows the smoke and reaches a trail that is clearly inhabited by a person. Then he notices something he had been begging to see for the past year. Someone has left their bra to dry in the sun. Philip smells it and is so overwhelmed that he falls unconscious. When he wakes up, he sees a beautiful girl holding him in her lap. She seductively promises to fulfill his wishes and kisses him. Philip is enjoying the kiss before he wakes up and realizes he was dreaming. The girl in front of him is less attractive and older. She is performing CPR on him to bring him back. They pull away from each other, weirded out on seeing another human after so long. Philip asks her where the beautiful woman is until she points out he should be worried about his wet underpants instead. It turns out that he beat himself when he was unconscious. Even in a situation like this, Philip claims that he was swimming from the front side earlier, which is why his underpants are wet. He aggressively starts explaining that he did not pee himself, which makes the girl panic. She brings out a gun, asking him to stay away. Philip finally admits that he did it in fact pee and is embarrassed. After both of them calm down, they introduce themselves. The girl's name is Carol. She used to be an analyst before the virus and has been wandering around America after everyone died. She saw the Alive in Tucson sign and come here to see if she really is the last person alive. Although Philip had been dying to meet a woman, he isn't very excited to see Carol. She repeatedly corrects his grammar, doesn't understand his jokes, and keeps talking about irrelevant things. After talking for a while, they decide to drive to the grocery store. On the way, Carol complains about him crossing the stop sign. Despite Philip's arguing that there is no traffic, she remains adamant that they have to follow the rules or else they will start living like an animal. To make her feel better, he stops at the sign and looks to both sides, confirming that no one is crossing the road. Her nagging doesn't stop when they reach the grocery store and Philip parks in the handy spot. They get into their fifth argument of the day, with Philip insisting that imaginary handicapped person has a lot of space to park his car. When Carol still urges him to park somewhere else, he runs the vehicle into the store. Following that, she goes to take a tour of his house and is disgusted by the way he lives. He has two swimming pools, one filled with feces and the other with garbage. Carol also accuses him of stealing the painting, even so he urges they didn't belong to anyone anymore. By the end of the house tour, Philip asks her to go back to her campsite. The next morning, he is woken up by Carol cleaning up his house. She nags him to get gardening and the cleaning supplies from the store because they have to start living like human beings. At night, Philip goes to his pool buddies and complains about Carol, even though he has only known her for a day. He feels like they are a married couple who desperately need to get a divorce. The following morning, things get worse for him as she moves into the house next door. He tries to show her away, but Carol, being Carol, is stubborn. She asked him if he is scared of being seen naked, and as reply, Philip takes off his pants. Carol finally addresses the elephant in the room and brings up the topic of reproduction. She thinks they are the chosen ones who have been given the duty to repopulate the earth again. Philip says that he wouldn't sleep with her even if she was the last woman in earth, which is true in this case. In the next scene, he is in his outdoor toilet. When Carol approaches him, she wants him to find a way to get running water to their house. That way, they can grow tomatoes and other fruits. When he refuses to help, she tries to bribe him with the fresh tomatoes, but he doesn't care. However, when it gets dark, he breaks into her garden and eats all of her vegetables. Carol knocks on his door the next morning and finds him covered in leftover tomatoes. Philip still claims that he isn't the one who stole them. He also notices Carol has hurt her leg while trying to transfer water to her house from a manhole. A few days later, she gives up on trying to live like a decent human. Philip finds her making an outdoor toilet in a fountain, copying his swimming pool toilet. Carol thinks that they might not be the chosen ones, but the forgotten one who have no purpose in life. They are in no way capable of creating an entire human civilization when they cannot even arrange a toilet in their $1 million mansion. Philip, who is used to seeing Carol as an optimistic person, feels awful for her. So he goes to the city's water tank and arranges a way to water Carol's garden. She is finally happy to see a good side to him and invites him to dinner. At night, Philip enjoys an organic meal after a long time. The topic of sex is brought up and Philip says he is ready to sleep with her now. However, to his surprise, Carol doesn't want to make love before marriage. Initially, Philip laughs, thinking that it is a joke, but she turned out to be serious. Even though the idea is ridiculous, he proposes to make her feel better. At last, they decided to get married the next day. In the following scene, they are in a church saying their vow. Philip thinks it isn't necessary, but goes with the act anyway. When they step out of the church, they are welcomed by a crowd of guests. Philip realizes he had made a mistake and screams. Then he wakes up on his bed, thankful that it was only a dream. He even has to check out the window to ensure that most of the world is still dead. A while later, Carol comes to his house with food. She thinks they should elect the president of the United States by voting. It is useless, but Philip elects himself and becomes the president anonymously. Then the two enjoy spaghetti and raisins balls, which Carol thinks is a good alternative to meatballs. Following that, the day of the wedding finally comes. Carol prepares the decorations and the cake, while Philip is tasked to get rings for them. However, instead of getting the rings, he throws a bachelor party for his pool buddies, setting fire to random things in a parking lot. He even goes to say goodbye to the mannequin, telling her that she will always remain the love of his life. At the end of the day, he goes to the church where Carol has prepared a recording that will officiate their wedding. After a brief pause, it is finally the time to exchange rings. It is when Carol discovers that he didn't get them. She realizes she is the only one putting efforts and calls off the wedding. Later, Philip knocks on her door, trying to talk to her, but she doesn't reply. So he breaks the phone front door with a hammer and enters the house. To his surprise, she has actually put in effort to decorate it. She has even prepared a cake for them with a statue on top. Philip feels awful about what he did and apologizes to her. He also reveals that he doesn't really like her personality or the food she cooks, but even so, he is glad that she exists because without her he would not be alive right now. With that being said, Philip brings her out to do something special. In the following scene, they go to a jewelry shop where Carol gets all the rings she wants. She finally officiates the wedding and are declared husband and wife. At night, the two make love, but the experience is not how Philip thought it would be. Carol cannot stop talking throughout the night, making strange remarks that she thinks are hot. The next morning, she finds him playing racquetball in his home. Philip thinks she is going to nag him again, but to his surprise, she joins him in the game. They enjoy the rest of the day doing things like Philip normally does. They make fireproof suits and they set each other on fire, run a bulldozer over beer cans, and go to meet Philip's ex-girlfriend, who is a mannequin. Carol talks to her for a while before beating her up for hitting on her husband. For the first time, Philip is glad that he married her and thinks that their life might be tolerable. As they are driving back home, they suddenly hit a limo on a junction. Shocked, Philip runs to the car and sees a beautiful woman come out of it. Just when he thought he was happy with his wife, he starts to regret their marriage. After Philip and Carol hit a limo on the road, Philip runs to check who's inside it. To his surprise, a beautiful woman named Melissa comes out and introduces herself just when Philip was happy to have married Carol. He falls back to square one and wants to divorce her to be with the beautiful woman. It turned out that she saw the Alive in Tucson sign and they come here 2 weeks ago, but has been driving around because the sign had no address. Philip hasn't regretted anything in his life more than not writing his address on the thing. Upon reaching home, Philip tries his best to impress a new lady, but Carol doesn't let him. She is brutally honest about his filthy habits, like the toilet bowl and the garbage house he lived in before she came into his life. Philip invites Melissa to stay at his house, but she rushes him that she is fine in the house across the street. Later, the women are having a chat in the kitchen when Philip arrives with his newly groomed hair and beard. He read it for Melissa, but gets compliment from only his wife. At night, they have dinner together, and throughout the time, Philip tries to flirt with Melissa. He agrees to whatever she says, making up things to show that they share the same interests. However, by the end of the dinner, he drowns in his own lies and makes a fool out of himself. Later that night, Melissa comes to his room and invites him to the shower. He excitedly falls her behind, but finds Carol waiting for him. Suddenly, he wakes up covered in sweat from the nightmare. The following morning, Melissa knocks on his door and finds him working out. They exaggerating to show her that he is a provider, but Melissa sees through the act. She has come to ask him about the car outside her house. It is revealed that he brought it for her because he felt bad about smashing into her limo. Carol is not happy about him doing favors to another woman when he hasn't even fixed the door that he broke. Later that day, he tries to fix it but proves he is the worst handyman ever. Melissa comes to invite him and Carol for drinks, but Philip lies about Carol being sick and goes alone. As Melissa gets drunk, she reveals that she would have slept with him if he wasn't married, but that ship has sailed long ago. Philip is in shock because these are the words he so desperately wanted to hear. He immediately goes to Carol to break up with her, but finds her making a portrait of them. She thanks him for making the door no matter how bad it is. Philip can get himself to ask her for divorce after that. In the following scene, we see a sports car stop in front of the Alive in Tucson sign. A man gets out of the car, making it evident that the other three are not the only people alive on the earth. The man, eager to find another human, drive to Tucson. Back at home, Philip, Carol, and Melissa are chatting and drinking. Carol tells Melissa everything about her and Philip's marriage, much to Philip's annoyance because he doesn't want Melissa to think he is in love with Carol. When he gets a chance to talk to her alone, he brings up yesterday's topic. Melissa is embarrassed that she told him about her sexual desires and blame it on the alcohol. Philip tells her she has nothing to be embarrassed about, but she emphasizes that she would never sleep with a married man like him. Philip Philip's face drops as he again misses a chance to be with her because of his so-called marriage. The next day he thinks of a plan and share it with his bold buddies. If he impregnates only Carol, their children will have to repopulate the earth with each other. But if he has babies with two women, the possibility of incest is crossed out. Now all Philip has to do is get Carol and Melissa on board with his plan. In the following scene, he goes to Melissa's house and asks her if she wants the best for the earth and the human life. When she affirms, he takes it as signs that she would sleep with him for the betterment of the earth. Then he goes to Carol and pretends to cry about something he is very worried about. After she asks him what it is, he tells her about the possibility of the children having to repopulate with each other. Carol hates the thought of something like that happening, and Philip takes this opportunity to suggest the idea of him and Melissa having babies. Carol is strictly against it, but he asks her to give it a thought. He also pretends that he would hate to be with another woman but is willing to do anything for the earth. When Carol finds out that Melissa told him she would sleep with him if he wasn't married, she is furious. She kicks Philip out of the house and goes to Melissa to curse her as well. Later, Melissa comes to Philip and asks him what he said to his wife. She too insults him and walks away in anger. He now desperately has to think of a way to make it up to them. So he organizes a dunk the shank game, where the woman can press a button to dunk him into the water and do it repeatedly until their anger wears off. However, his plan falls as they completely ignore him and he resorts to dunking himself several times. 3 hours later, the woman asks him to come inside. He thinks he will make him apologize, but to his surprise, Carol allows him to repopulate with Melissa. Initially, Philip assumes they are playing a trick, but Melissa also affirms that she is ready to have sex with him. But there are some conditions they have to follow to ensure the relationship is strictly professional. The two can only sleep 3 times a month and 3 times a day. Also, this process will stop right after Melissa gets pregnant. Philip pretends to be truthfully agreeing to the contract, but goes home and screams into a pillow out of excitement. The next day is the day they finally get to be together. Philip cleans up and wears nice clothes before being stopped by Carol. She gives him peanuts for stamina and orders him to not enjoy the sex and be back home as fast as he can. Sometime later, he brings Melissa out on a romantic date. He wants to make it special, while Melissa just wants to get done with the work and send him back to his wife. Philip has even created a firework display for her, which can be seen from miles away. The man in the sports car sees this and turns his car around, looking for the source. He has been in the city for a week looking for people and was about to leave before seeing the fireworks. Just when Philip and Melissa are about to kiss, they hear the noise of the car rumbling. Philip thinks it is a Corolla and design a noise, but when the man steps out of the car, both of them are surprised. He introduced himself as a Todd, a technician from the east who was planning to go to Mexico before he saw Philip sign on the road. Philip asked Todd to go away because they are busy, but now that another man is here, Melissa doesn't see the point of them being together. In the following scene, Philip returns home and tells Carol what happened. She is over the moon that her husband won't have to sleep with another woman anymore. However, Philip commented on Todd's body and insists that Melissa wouldn't have sex with him. Later, they gather outside to officially introduce themselves while chatting. Todd reveals that his favorite movie is The Shawshank Redemption, which also happens to be Melissa's favorite. To contribute to the conversation, Philip also blabbers about Tom Hanks' great performance when the man is not even in the movie. Upon seeing Todd get all the attention, Philip makes inappropriate jokes about his weight. While the one condemning him for it, Todd doesn't seem to mind. He reveals that he started overeating after his parents passed away when he was little. He has been bullied his entire life and has come to a point where no comment bothers him anymore. A while later, both Melissa and Todd leave to take a rest for the night. Carol comments that she felt sparks between the two. She is ready to be their matchmaker, much to Philip's annoyance. The following day, she sets up a city date for the 4 of them, but plans to back her out at the last minute. That way, Todd and Melissa can enjoy the day together together. She invites them to her house and they pretend to vomit. She also urges Philip to stay with her to help around the house. As a result, Melissa and Todd get the day to themselves. They ride go-kart, play golf, and have a lot of fun together. Philip spies on them the entire time, commenting on Todd's lack of knowledge about how to woo a woman. Later that day, he returns home and is helping Carol clean up the dishes using the machine she invented. She reveals that Melissa and Todd are going on a second date because the first one was fun. Philip urges her to stop setting them up, but it turned out Melissa was the one who asked Todd out this time. Philip cannot risk them being alone together again, so he turns the date into a double date. The four of them go to the tennis court where Philip takes off his shirt and asks Todd to do the same. He hopes the man will be embarrassed, but Todd does it without hesitation. Suddenly, Melissa gasps at something. Philip is glad that she doesn't like Todd's body, but it turns out she's looking at a scar in the side of his belly. Todd discloses that he donated his kidney to his foster brother when he was young. The woman feels bad for him and makes him the center of attention yet again. Philip tries his best to divert their attention, but they would much rather listen to Todd all day. It turned out that the person he donated the kidney to did not survive the transplant. Talking about the accident ruins Todd's mood. He apologizes to everyone and walks away. A while later, Carol and Philip go looking for him and find him and Melissa kissing. Carol thinks that Philip made Todd take his shirt off because he knew the transplant story would kickstart Todd's relationship with Melissa. Philip takes a compliment but is burning with jealousy inside. At night, he goes to Melissa's place and asks her to never trust the facts because they are not good people in general. Melissa calls him an ass before shutting the door to his face. Philip begs for her forgiveness, which makes her feel bad, and she eventually opens the door for him again. Following that, they go to Philip's favorite bar and meets his pool buddies. Melissa gets to see the real him for the first time as he admits Shawshank Redemption is not his favorite movie of all time. He says that he wanted to fit in with them and thought lying was the only way to make good friends. As the conversation pursues, Philip feels like Melissa might be interested in him. He tells her how much he likes her and asks her out on a date. However, to his utter embarrassment, Melissa declines because he is a married man and she is dating Todd. Philip quickly recovers by saying that he was practicing his line to confess his feeling to Carol. Melissa knows it is a lie, but she doesn't call him out for it because it would make the interaction more awkward. Philip and Melissa are at the bar talking about different things. She kisses him out of nowhere, taking him by surprise. They start making out and soon end up in Melissa's bed. She plays a song at full volume so the noise of them enjoying themselves won't be heard outside. Suddenly, Philip wakes up and realizes it was all a dream. Strangely enough, the song he was listening to in the dreams is still playing somewhere. He finds out that it is coming from Melissa's house, but ignores it, going back to his dream world. But this time, Todd has joined them in bed. Philip gets screaming at the nightmare. The next morning, he is sitting by the pool that he uses as a toilet. Carol urges him to either clean it or go to a motel like she does every morning. However, Philip can care less about the pungent smell. Plus, he is overly irritated today because he could hardly get any sleep last night. Later, he goes to Todd and notices that he is in a suspiciously good mood. Upon being asked about the blasting music last night, Todd reveals that he and Melissa were together. Philip urges him repeatedly and makes him admit that he made love to Melissa last night. Philip laughs in pain and pretends as though the news doesn't hurt him. Todd continues telling him all the details about the special night while Philip listening in distress. They are approached by Melissa who asks Todd to come over. Philip tries to join them but she is quick to dismiss him. Before leaving, Todd comments that they are about to do it again and follows her behind. A distressed Philip goes to his home and falls face first into the children's pool filled with alcohol. He tries to keep the thought of Melissa and Todd out of his head, but it follows him to his bed. He can hardly fall asleep because of the love-making song blasting in Melissa's house. The following morning, Carol asks him to clean the pool over breakfast. Not wanting to argue, he claims that he is working on it, even though he has no intention of doing so. Carol also mentions that Melissa told told her she is having the best sex of her life. This triggers Philip's frustration, and he goes on a rant about the song not letting him sleep. As a reply, Carol reminds him that he is the president of America, so he has the authority to stop them from making a noise. Philip thinks the idea is great and arranges a neighborhood meeting later that day. He introduces them to a grievance board where the four of them can make compliments and suggestions every week to make their community a better place. He takes the privilege of being the first one. His suggestion is that they implement a sex curfew and noises ordinance for Todd and Melissa. An announcement Todd doesn't understand what he is trying to do, but Melissa sees right through his intention. She refuses to oblige to his stupid rule. Instead, they unanimously vote for him to clean his toilet pool. The next morning, Philip reluctantly has to wear a water suit and to get inside to his filthy pool. He picks a few buckets of dirt, but it falls right into the water again. After trying for a while, Philip loses patience and ditches the work. By now, he is so tired of his bad luck that he lies down on the side of the pool and cries. He is interrupted by Melissa, who asks if she can talk to him for a while. She feels bad that she put her relationship with Todd in his face, especially after his confession last time. Philip still remains adamant that he was just practicing confessing to Carol. Still, Melissa apologizes for all the noise and asks him to forget they can ever be together. Before she leaves, Philip asks her for the last time if she would sleep with him if Todd wasn't here. Melissa refuses to answer because Todd is her boyfriend and they can do nothing to change that. Philip thinks about the comment for a long time even after she leaves. His frustration turns into anger and hatred for Todd. Eventually, he makes it a mission to get rid of him, one way or the other. In the following scene, he knocks on the Todd's door and asks him out on a bro's car ride. Philip claims that he has a special place they can visit, which is enough for Todd to join him. They drive for 3 hours into the desert but do not reach their destination. Todd is enjoying the ride, talking about his sex life with Melissa and how they spend hours making love. At the same time, Philip can't wait to throw the guy out of the car. When they are deep into the desert, Philip pretends that he hears a try pop. As Todd gets out to check, he drives away, abandoning the man. A few seconds later, Philip seconds his decisions and stops the car. He tries backing up but changes his mind again. This continues for a solid minute before Philip finally decided to ditch the plan. Todd gets inside the car and jokes that he always knew Philip was coming back. He doesn't recognize Philip's hatred for him and is positive that they are good friends. Moreover, he thanks Philip for everything he has in life today. A girlfriend like Melissa and 2 friends who care about him. Philip cannot help but feel awful that he tried to abandon a man like Todd. Upon returning home, he is motivated to clean the pool. He gets his gear on and works for hours before finally cleaning everything. Later that day, Carol comes to his house with tissue paper up her nose to avoid the smell. Philip forces her to take them off, showing off his hours worth of work. Carol is so happy that she hugs him and says that she is proud to be his wife. For the first time, Philip feels good hearing these words. In addition, he has even found a portable toilet for her, so she doesn't have to go to motels every day. At night, the neighbors get together by the fire and drink. Carol thanks Todd for helping her carry her dresser. He is also praised for making a charm bracelet for Melissa. Philip cannot take someone else being the center of attention but has to listen to the girls gush about how nice of a person Todd is. It gets worse when Todd brings out a sculpture he made of 4 of them. Out of jealousy, Philip breaks it and acts like it was a mistake, but only his statue is broken off, so the plan bites him back. The next morning, Philip comes to Carol's house to ask for her DVR. Taking the opportunity, she suggests they start living together so they can use each other things more conveniently. She is mad that even Todd and Melissa basically live together, but she doesn't live with her husband. Philip rationalizes his wish to stay alone by claiming that he loves his space and wouldn't be able to adjust with her. An angered Carol asks him to at last fix her door or else she will ask Todd for help. As a result, Philip pretends to take measurements of the door, but Carol sees right through his act. After that, Philip goes to his favorite bar and talks to his ball buddy. He complains about Todd and how he is stealing his position in the community. Now, he has to think of a grand gesture to see better than him. As he asking himself to think, the gesture itself appears in front of him. It is none other than a living cow. In the next scene, Phillips has gathered everyone outside his home. He opens the door and blows everyone off their feet. They haven't seen an animal in more than 2 years, which is why they are beyond thankful to him. However, they come to a disagreement when Philip wants to slaughter it for meat while the other wants to keep it for milk and every other dairy product. Todd offers help because he used to work on his uncle's farm and knows how to milk a cow and churn butter. The girls again fawn over him, making Philip mad. To gain sympathy, Philip lies about being lactose intolerant. They feel bad for him for some time, but it is again taken over by the excitement of getting to eat dry again. Moreover, only Todd has grass in his backyard, so the cow will have to be at his home. He milks it, but Phillips has to watch as they enjoy fresh milk. When it gets dark, Phillips comes to Todd's backyard to milk it on his own. He has a zip but has to hide when Todd and Melissa arrive to do the same. He hears them flirting and feels himself burn with jealousy. So after they leave, he unties the cons that was tying the cow to a tree and lets it free. The next morning, the girls are ready to have a cereal dipped in milk after a long time, but Todd comes to them revealing that the cow is gone. Meanwhile, in the bar, Philip introduces Animal to his pool buddies. He plans to find the lost cow and win everyone's heart for the second time. Upon returning home, he pretends to not know anything about the missing cow. Melissa catches into his act and asks him if he stole it. Philip acts offended, but is scared that his lie will come out. The group decided to take a quadrant of the city and to go on a search. Melissa is sure that Philip is the culprit, so she takes the quadrant that she has his favorite bar. After they all make their way to their respective quadrant, Phillips follows Melissa. Strangely enough, she walks inside the bar and comes out with the cow. Philip goes in after she leaves and is glad to see that the cow has already fled. But now he will actually have to work to find her. As he drives down the city, Todd appears in front of him with the missing cow. Philip is mad that he will get the credit yet again. However, to his surprise, Todd suggests he takes the credit. The guy feels bad that his girlfriend played Philip when it wasn't his fault and is ready to give him credit so he can prove his innocence. Philip pretends that he cannot take the credit for someone else's work, but by the end of the day, he is posting about how he found the cow on someone's lawn. At midnight, he is woken up by a scream. He figures it coming from Carol's house and runs to her alongside Melissa and Todd. It turns out that the cow somehow get into the house and into her room. Since it cannot go back downstairs, Carol will have to live with it. Philip laughs at her, making fun of her misery, and aware that he is the one who will suffer from this situation because the cow cannot be moved. Carol moves in with her husband. Upon being asked how the cow got upstairs, she says she has no clue, but a flashback shows us that she brought it up because she wanted to move with Philip. In the last scene, we see them sleeping beside each other. Carol is over the moon, but the same cannot be said for Philip. Philip and Carol are finally living together, but Philip can hardly fall asleep because of the noise of Carol's breathing machine. He asks her to keep it down, and she agrees, but it only lasts for a few seconds. The next morning, he finds out that she has drawn a puppy on the Monet painting he stole from the museum long ago. She says it was to give it to life, unaware of the legacy of the original painting. Not just that, but she has also made a little duck beside Van Gogh. Then he finds out she labeled these adult magazines as molested girls and put them in the storeroom. He asks her to never touch her things again because even though they are living in the same house, at the end of the day, it is his house. They get into an argument which somehow ends in Carol making him a shopping list. Philip storms out while cursing her silently. He goes outside to write his frustration on the grievance board, which is filled with complaints about himself. His days get worse after seeing Todd giving Melissa a haircut. Filled with jealousy, Philip complains about haircuts practices in the grievance board. A while later, he's outside the grocery store and has bought everything he was asked to, but instead of bringing them home, he sets the items on fire. He asks God for a do-over out of frustration, and strangely enough, the wishes come true. A car stops in front of him and two beautiful women step outside. They are also brought here by the Alive in Tucson board and are excited to see the first man in the past 2 years. Phillips feels just as excited, but upon being asked if he knows more people, he goes silent. After giving it a thought, he says that he is the only man in Tucson. He wants to use this opportunity as a do-over to gain two beautiful women as his partners. They introduce themselves as Gail and Erica. Gail is slightly older than the two, which Philip loves, while Erica is Australian, which he finds attractive. They bring him to their mansion and have a drink together, celebrating their union. The girls reveal that they met while they both were staying at the White House and have been together ever since. They also insinuate that they have been in a lesbian relationship till now, which excites Philip even more. Now that he is here, the girls aren't afraid to admit that they will be ending the relationship was only exist because they thought no man was alive. The comment is all Philip was waiting for. He's having the best time of his life until they notices the ring on his finger. This reminds him of Carol and he decided to go home for a while. He leaves but not before, promising the girls that he will be back for dinner. At home he brings Carol everything on her shopping list and greets her with a smile out of guilt. Still, it doesn't stop him from making excuses about where he was and where he is about to go later. He says he will be going camping to relax for the night. Carol notices that he is in a great mood and supports him, even though he lives without any gear of camping. She doesn't suspect him. Following the interaction, Philip goes to his favorite bar and gets dressed. He talks to Paul Buddy, asking for their opinion on the Gail and Erica thing. He pretends that they are cheering for him and convinces him that he is making a good decision. Moreover, Carol said that she is happy when he is happy, so he feels obligated to make himself happy by sleeping with other women. In the following scene, he greets Gail and Erica with a bottle of wine. They compliment each other before heading to the dining hall for dinner. Gail is a chef and has made many gourmet dishes using whatever care ingredients they had. Meanwhile, Melissa, Todd, and Carol are also having dinner together. When the topic of Philip and his personality arises, Melissa is deeply uncomfortable. She doesn't like him a single bit and thinks he is a pathological liar. Todd, however, is Philip's fan. He thinks Melissa is too harsh on him and that he deserves a chance to do better in life. As Todd posts about how good of a man his friends is, Gail and Erica and pouring alcohol down Philip's throat. Everything goes well until he accidentally makes a comment about liking older women and black women in general. The girls take offense to it and start pulling back for him. Philip quickly recovers by saying that his wife Carol is dead and he is still mourning. That is why he hasn't been able to take off the wedding ring yet. This gains him their sympathy and brings his plan back on track. He even makes up an entire dramatic story about Carol's death and how much it has hurt his life. To make him feel better, the girls suggest they go skinny dipping in the hot spring. Philip almost jumps in excitement at the thought. He knows he is getting laid tonight and is over the moon. Somewhere else, Carol thinks she should do something special for her husband since he has been good to her in the last few days. Todd agrees and suggests they fill the house with balloons as a random act of kindness. Melissa doesn't think Philip deserves it, but decided to help the other two. They set off to the grocery while at the same time the other three are on their way to the hot spring. To Philip's misfortune, the car stops in front of each other. Gail and Erica come outside, greeting Todd, Melissa, and Carol in excitement. They are so happy to have found each other that they forget about Philip for a few minutes. Then Gail asks him to come outside and Carol sees that it is none other than her dear husband. Everyone is furious at Philip, Gail and Erica for hiding other humans for them, Todd for disappointing him, and Carol for everything Philip has ever done. Then he insists that he was planning to bring them tonight. He pretends to be happy because they were surprised, claiming that they were supposed to meet each other in shocking circumstances according to his plan. Despite no one believing him, he repeatedly tries to prove that it was a prank. They also discover that Philip lied about Carol's death. To get out of the situation, he starts making up absurd stories like he was married to someone else named Carol before the virus. In the end, they call him disgusting and drive home, leaving him stranded in the middle of the street. Philip, who had thought this would be the greatest night of his life, has to walk all night to reach the neighborhood in the morning. The newly arrived girls, Todd and Melissa, are enjoying dairy products while sharing about different things. They socialize with each other, besides on their mutual hatred for Philip. Just then, Philip arrives and tries to make conversation with them as if nothing happened. They give him the silent treatment and he tries to fight back but is wildly unsuccessful. Following that, he goes goes to his house and finds Carol waiting for him. She makes strange noises, then sarcastically apologizes for being a ghost. Philip still remains adamant that it was just a prank. In the end, Carol calls him a skunk and kicks him out of the house, even though it is his house. Philip knows he has lost the privilege to urge after what happened yesterday. He looks at the wallpaper of him and Carol before walking away in distress. At night, he stays at his favorite bar with his pool buddies, who always have his back. He is confident that the other will come looking for him if he doesn't return home the entire night. He also doesn't mind sleeping on the pool table and calls it a rather comfortable place. With no one comes for an entire day, he keeps himself entertained by juggling the bottles of the alcohol for his friends. Meanwhile, Gail and Erica try to make amends with Carol. They bring her pecan pie and apologize for believing Philip. Even though it was not their fault, Carol cannot help but blame them. She thinks them being ready to have sex with a guy they just met was unethical. The girls leave after an awkward conversation and he takes a pie with them. After that, Melissa and Todd come to have a chat with her. Carol hardly looks at them and replies with curt answers to their question. She is jealous that they have a good relationship but pretend to be unbothered. To prove that she's fine, she even makes them kiss. By the end of the conversation, the couple figures out that they can do nothing to help her. They ask her to come to them anytime she wants before taking off. After staying in the bar for 2 days, Philip is now sure that no one is coming to apologize for misunderstanding him. He wishes that he was a different person, which gives him an idea. In the following scene, he knocks on Carol's door as Mike, Philip's twin brother with trimmed hair. Carol just shuts the door to his face without saying anything. The next morning, Philip overhears the other talking about him. They discuss how he is a pathological liar and how it has affected his and Carol's relationship. Initially, Philip tells himself they are just laughing, but upon giving it a thought, he registers he is in fact a liar. With a new vision, he goes to the rest of the group one last time. They are sitting around the fire drinking, trying to ignore his presence. Philip understands their feeling and admits that what he did with Jill and Erica was not a prank. He is regretful for lying every single time that he has, especially to Carol, who has always wanted the best for him. He apologizes for not being the husband she wants him to be because he lied when he said I do to her in the church. Everyone listened to him for the first time, saying that he is actually sorry. In the following scene, Philip is with his pool buddies again. The problem might not have been solved, but he feels a lot better after getting everything off his chest. Just then, he is surprised by Carol's arrival. He has brought a mate that she made in the past 2 days, especially for him because it says skunk. Given the analogy of the mat, she reveals that their marriage is not working no matter how hard she tries. She hands him the divorce papers and the two get divorced at the end. For some reasons, Philip feels sad while signing the paper. They share a passionate kiss after that, but stops himself from going further, deciding to stay friends for now. After that, the two announce their divorce to the others. Gail and Erica discover that they were only married for 3 weeks. This surprised them and they start seeing Philip as a handsome single man again. The next day, Carol has moved out of Philip's home. When he's alone, Gail arrives and seductively invites him to help her with something. Phil gets a hint and the two are about to kiss when Carol arrives to get her belongings. She asks them to contain, but the two don't feel comfortable with her in the house. Before leaving, Gail asks Philip to be home at 3 because she will be coming over. Philip is over the moon and cannot wait for the clock to hit 3. In the meantime, Todd and Melissa's relationship is going great. He makes her a heart-shaped pancake and tells her that he loves her for the first time. However, she replies with a simple thank you. The answer takes him by surprise, but he pretends to be okay with it. Philip is over the moon that he will finally get to sleep with Jill. His day gets even better when he meets Erica. Now that he is single, she wants to take the relationship further. They decided to go hiking at 5 since he has an appointment with Jill at 3. Sometime later, Philip is driving to the market but stops after seeing Todd in the middle of the street. He tells Philip that he said I love you to Melissa and her reply was simply thank you. Philip is happy that his day is going better than Todd's, but he tries to remain natural. He also assures Todd that Melissa will someday say I love you back because he is the only man on earth who she doesn't hate. In reply, Todd mentions that since they come two sons because of his sign, maybe there are more people who will join them in the future. Philip's face drops at the realization if they are joined by more men. Jill and Erica will have options and there is possibility that they won't choose him. The only solution would be to remove the Alive in Tucson's board. He puts his plan into action and drives to the billboard that started all. He crosses the sign with spray paint and writes move to Tampa underneath. That way if someone were to see the board, they won't come to Tucson. Just when he thinks he is good, the leader falls off and he is stuck in the billboard. He only has a few hours before his date with Jill and there is no way he can jump off from that height. This wouldn't be so bad if the Arizona heat didn't burn him all over. He whimpers, shouting that he is scared. Back in Tucson, Jill comes to Philip's house in anticipation. She searches for him all over and ends up in his bedroom, but there is no sign of him. Assuming that he is playing a trick on her, she seductively places herself on the bed. 2 hours later, Erica arrives and finds Jill sleeping. They register that they were double booked and double stowed up. In Todd's home, he makes pancakes for Melissa, as always, but this time they are not heart-shaped. She notices he has been decent since breakfast yesterday and decided to address the situation. She thinks saying I love you to each other is a very important step in one's relationship and she doesn't want to jump there yet. Todd claims he understands and tries to hide that he is upset. Meanwhile, Philip continues burning in heat, trying to find the smallest hint of shade. He hangs his pants on the side of the billboard and lies beneath it, so at least his face would be covered. But to his misfortune, it flies away and he is left in his underwear. 1 more hour later, he stretches his shirt out to hide most of his body, but is struggling. Carol finds Jill and Erica and asks them how their sexual venture went. Upon finding out that Philip never showed up, she assumes he is dead because he would never miss a chance to sleep with 2 women. In the following scene, Philip is on the back of someone's truck. He has been rescued by a stranger who is taking him home when it gets dark. Carol gathers everyone and discusses how they can get Philip back. Before they do anything, a truck approaches them and out comes a handsome man who rescued Philip. It turned out his name is also Philip Miller and he is an ex-military. The woman starts falling over him, trying to find out if they have something in common with the guy. Moreover, he has practical skills to build and run things that will be helpful to the community. Todd is instantly protective of Melissa, saying that she's been friendly to the new guy. He also doesn't forget to introduce himself as her boyfriend. As they chat, the new Philip reveals about move to Tampa board. Everyone figures out why Philip did it and is disgusted by his actions. After the meeting, they go to their respective homes for the night. Todd asks Melissa if she likes the new Philip and she assures him that she doesn't want to be with anyone else other than him. However, it does very little to make Todd feel better. Philip, on the other hand, goes to Jill's house to continue what they had planned, but Jill says she needs to rest and they kick him out. On his way back, Philip notices Jill, Erica, and the new Philip having drinks together. The new guy has taken over what was supposed to be his spot. To get his authority back, he organizes a community meeting the next day. As the president of the United States, the new Philip wants to build wind and solar energy so they can have electricity again. Everyone praises his thinking and Philip is left in the shadows. Things get worse for Philip when Jill suggests he and the new Philip should go with their middle names since the new guy doesn't have one. Everyone unanimously votes on calling Philip Standy from now on. He protests and they settle on a Jenga competition to decide who gets to keep the name. The new Philip wins and Philip's name is turned into Tandy. It has been the worst day for Tandy, so he decided to go to Carol's to drink. but to his distress, she is all dressed up to go to Philip's. He has even fixed her door, something Tandy couldn't do for so many weeks. The next day, Philip is showing the cow that is still stuck in Carol's house. Todd said that a cow can go downstairs, but Philip proves him wrong by making her do it. He is yet again praised while Todd is embarrassed. Soon, Gail, Erica, and Carol start fighting to Philip's attention, and for some reason, he seems to prefer Carol over everyone else. Her love for cats and the caring catch his attention. Tandy is the most bothered by this. He only wanted the other woman for sex, but Carol is her real true friend who has been here since day one. So, to prevent Philip from staying at Carol's, he invites him to his house instead. Soon, Philip moves in with Tandy. One morning, Tandy sees him topless and thinks that he is trying to assert dominance by showing off his ripped muscles. He goes to his pole friends and shows them his body. In his head, the bull gives him a green light to show off his muscle as well. So he walks into the kitchen naked to show Philip who is the real alpha. However, the plan fails when Erica walks in on him naked and makes fun of him. Later that day, Todd sees Philip bringing a garbage truck into the neighborhood while Melissa is riding on the back. He goes to talk to Melissa and asks her to stay away from Philip. He thinks she is about to dump him, so he dumps her first. At last, heartbroken Melissa closes the door on his face. Meanwhile, the girl continues to fight for Philip and Carol seems to be winning because of her knitting skills. At night, everyone goes through the governance board, acknowledging that Philip's arrival has solved half of their problems. Tandy tries to undermine Philip's accomplishment, making it evident that he is jealous. As a result, everyone decided to vote for the president of the United States one more time. Philip wins and is declared as the leader of the community. In a desperate attempt to be relevant, Tandy blurts out that he has made a farm where they can grow crops. He is asked to show them the farm the next day so he can spend the entire night plowing to make his lie come true. The next morning, Todd informs him that in his absence, Philip slept with all the women. Tandy asks Carol if it's true and find out Todd was wrong. They only took a shower at his place because he had hot water. Later, Tandy and Philip go to the farm where Philip praises him for his hard work. Tandy is glad to have someone from for reassure that he is still the man he once was. He even starts to like the new guy. However, this feeling fades away at night when he hears Carol moaning. She and Philip make love all night, making sure the entire neighborhood hears them shouting. Tandy is furious, to say the least. He and Todd are around the campfire when he suggests they kill the new guy. The next morning, Philip is placing solar panels while Todd and Tandy spy on him. By now, Todd's anger has died down and he thinks killing a person is a bad idea, but Tandy urges that it is an easy process. They can just drive him to the middle of the desert and leave him there. This reminds Todd of the time Tandy drove him to the desert. He finds out he was trying to kill him and his disappointment. While trying to prove otherwise, Tandy yells that he hates Philip and Philip hears him. Then Tandy goes to Carol to ask her when did she marry Philip because he clearly remembers she said she wouldn't sleep with anyone without marrying them. Carol rationalizes that she only married Tandy for babies, but her relationship with Philip is casual. Tandy almost screams in frustration because that is all he wanted from her when they first met. Carol makes it clear that he cannot have her now, that she is in a relationship with Philip. Later that day, Philip moves out of Tandy's house because he heard him talk to Todd earlier. He reveals that he really likes Carol and won't let Tandy messes up the relationship at any cost. In the following scene, Tandy goes to his pool buddies to vent. When he starts talking about Carol, he realizes that he desperately wants to get back with her, not just because she's with Philip, but because she is the only person he is close to. So he gathered jewelry from different stores and brings them to here in an attempt to win her heart. The plan falls when Philip arrives and holds Carol dearly. At night, everyone gathers around and the bonfire again. Carol excitedly introduces Philip's new achievement, a lamp that actually works. Everyone is over the moon because soon they will get electricity in their homes. But a jealous Tandy knocks over the lamp and pretends that it was on him. Everyone blames him for the plunder, and Tandy, being Tandy, makes up several excuses. Eventually, Todd has enough of his bullshit and accuses him of trying to kill him and Philip. Everyone is shocked because that is low below even for someone like him. As the president of the United States, night, Philip asks him to go away from Tucson and never come back. Tandy is shocked because he is the foundation of the community, and seeing that no one else is speaking up for him, he is hurt. He throws a fit and locks himself into a room, refusing to go anywhere. This continues for 3 days straight. He doesn't come out of the room even once, and he eats toilet paper and toothpaste. Carol is worried for him and wants Philip to forgive the guy, but he is adamant. He says that he would be happy if Tandy died, which shocks Carol. She goes to Tandy at night and asks him to come outside because they have forgiven him. A while later he agrees and joins them around the bonfire. Everyone is glad to see him except Philip, who tackles him to the ground. In the following scene, Tandy in the back of a truck. Philip drives to the middle of the desert and leave him with food and water for 2 days. Even with the supplies, it is clear that he will die if not helped. Meanwhile, Melissa goes to Todd to make sure he's okay, to say that he loves her and is okay with her not loving him back. He just doesn't want to pretend to not care anymore. Melissa takes him back and the two embrace each other. 20 minutes later, Tandy has eaten all of the food and is drowning in regret. He lies down on the ground, unable to walk anymore. Suddenly, one of his best friends, Gary, rolls towards him. Carol has brought him food because she knew 2 days worth of supplies won't be enough. She disclosed that she doesn't want to be with a man who can leave someone out in the desert to die. She would rather be with the one who doesn't have the guts to do it. Tandy is delighted, but he warns her she might be making a mistake because he is a douchebag most of the time. Carol says she knows, and the two drives back into the city as a couple. I hope you like the video. Please don't forget to subscribe. Bye.